Welcome everyone to another instalment of our webinar series here at Prosper Squared. Today we're discussing all things networking. I'm delighted today to introduce two very special guests, backed by popular demand, Dave Verburg and Sue Gee. So business coach and consultant Dave works closely with business owners to reach their goals through the power of their network by bringing business owners together to learn, develop and grow. And some of you might recognise Sue. She's been on a lot of our other webinars. Sue is our Business Development Director here at Prosper Squared. But before Sue joined us at Prosper Squared, she has 20 years of training and coaching under her belt through the mentoring of business owners. And she's also an author. So whether you're an established business owner, with a large network or a young entrepreneur like myself, I think you'll really enjoy this webinar and you'll gain some real value from it. Luckily for you as well, I'm not going to be speaking much throughout this webinar. Instead, I'll be manning the chat box. So if you have any burning questions, ensure that you have the all panelists and attendees selected so we can answer your questions at the end. If we do run over, I'll pop my email address in the chat box and I can send over your questions to Sue and Dave. So we'll get started. So Dave, I'm going to start with you. Where would one begin with their networking journey?
Where would one begin? It's a very posh question. Where would one begin? One would begin with knowing exactly who they want to speak to and why that person would be interested in hearing from them. So there's different schools of thought about how valued people are, about why you do what you do and the way that you go about your work. But if we accept that there's lots of great people who do the same thing as us, we need a way to be able to separate ourselves from the other people who do the same thing as us. And one of the key things that is being clear on what you want to do and why you want to do it, because then that leads you into who you want to do that for, who do you want to make the difference for, because then once you know that, then you can start looking to see where these people are, where do they network, but also where do the people who also work with them network. So understanding your key target market is an absolute must for me. And people can get confused with target market, but really if you do spend some time figuring out who you want to work with, you can then figure out where they will be, but more importantly, also just as importantly, will be who else wants to work with them. So when you go in networking, you can either spend your time trying to find 20 clients, or you can spend your time trying to find one person who is already working with those 20 clients, but doesn't do the same thing as you. And that would be the biggest thing when I was talking about thinking about your networking and where to start. Figure out who you want to work with, who else wants to work with them, and then go and find where they are. That would be my tip.
I think from my side, I think I'd support that as well, Dave, absolutely. But I'd also say that you need to be very clear on what your purpose is, yeah, and who you are, because people network with people, with real people. So what people have a tendency to do in networking is to go straight into, I've got this product, or I've got this whatever, or can I sell this? And actually what we should be doing is we should be saying, hi, you know, I'm Sue Gee, and this is a little bit about me, because I'd actually like to know a little bit about you. And then we need to sort of build that and that trust and that relationship before you go straight into these pitches. I think I've been at lots of networking events, and it's a straight thing into, let me tell you about what I have got, not who I am. What do you reckon, Dave?
100%. There's a lot of great work and studies out there. Locally in the Northwest, there's a guy called Andy Bounds who calls it the afters. And I love the way Andy describes it. If you accept that nobody's interested in you, they don't want what you do, right? What they want is the results that they hope you can bring for them. That's what they're interested in first and foremost. If you want to engage with someone, then you have to be a person who can show somebody that you can deliver on the results that they want. So for example, I often say nobody wants an accountant, right? what they want is good cash flow for the business. They want maybe profit loss forecasts. They want their returns done to HMRC on time. They want their staff to be paid on time. They want all of those things, but they either haven't got the skill, expertise, or time to do that themselves within their business. So they need someone to do it for them. So it's not the accountant they need, it's those outcomes. And if you focused on the outcomes about what you deliver for your client and how your client is better off, when you are then networking, that helps you have clarity of message to the right people and will enable them to engage with you. And also, I think it takes a lot of pressure off you, because nobody wants me. Who'd want a business coach? Mental, who'd want one of them? What people would want to engage with somebody like me would be something like clarity of thinking, guidance around goal setting and planning. Maybe they want the team to perform better in this. That's what they want. But like the accountant example, they either haven't got the skills or they want to spend their time being strategic on the business, that they can't do that. So they get somebody in who can. So if you start from the standpoint, people don't want you, what they want is the results of the problems that they've got, and they want you to be the person to deliver on that.
Can I put that in sort of another set, in sort of the way that I look at it, in the same sense that every person we speak to, we sell. Whatever we do, we are selling. Yeah. Even when you're talking to somebody inside of work that works for you, you're asking them to do something. You're selling what you want them to do. For me, when we're networking, is that it's about trying to offer people solutions to issues or needs that they have. Well, it's very difficult to give somebody some solutions or show how the network can help if you don't understand what they want in the first place. So one of the real key points for me about networking is maybe we should stop and listen and ask questions rather than let me go and do. And I remember many years ago doing some work with some Americans, not saying anything about Americans, but there was a case that it was a case of they were saying the first thing you do as soon as you meet somebody, give them your business card. And it was like, whoa, really? No. You only give somebody a business card if they ask you for it. Because if you're not asked for it, they're going to just put it in the bin. Yeah. Now, and if you've had a conversation and you found out what they need, what they're looking for, where they come from, what they're about, and you can start to sort of say, whoa, wow, yeah, there is something I can do to help support that, etc. Well, it's a bit like, oh, Sue, could you give me your business card? Linking to yours, Dave. Actually, I need a business coach. On that note, can you give it me? And now we've got a proper relationship starting with inside that network. So I'm a big one about, use open questions, ask open questions, try to think, yeah, I need to listen before I talk after the initial stuff.
Yeah. And we're living in a day and age now where obviously face-to-face interaction cannot happen. So what are your tips for maybe like where do we start with virtual networking?
I think there's some fundamentals in all of it that are just the same.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to that first one. It's really difficult for people now because there's an absolute ton of networking online. At any day, at any given time, most of us in business have got an opportunity to go on a webinar or a networking event somewhere. Now, one of the biggest things business owners will say that is a challenge for them is time. So this comes back to the first point. If you know where your target market clients are, or the people who work with them are, then that's where you should be networking. So whether it's online, face-to-face or whatever, that's where you need to be thinking about to begin your networking. Mm-hmm. And it's all right to do that. And then once that you can have to, one of the good things, I suppose, is breakout rooms. You have good networking, online networking, will have breakout rooms. Some of them are done really well. Some of them are done not so well. But I have a little phrase, which is not mine. I will credit my good friend, Johnny Drysdale, for coming up with this one. And that's Zoom as though you're in the room. There are just some things that you just do the same, whether you're online or whether you're stood next to someone. Like Sue just mentioned then, asking good questions. The start of the word question is the word quest. And that's what a question is. It's a quest. It's a journey for information. And if you use it right and ask the right types of questions, you can find out really well how you can help somebody or how you can introduce somebody else to help someone. But you don't know that unless you ask good questions and go on the journey with them. So that would be the first thing I would say. You don't interrupt people normally when you're talking, so you don't interrupt them on Zoom. You know, one of the great things at networking online is you can put your hand up. There's a little use the raise hand thing at the bottom. If you've got something to say, then just stick that up, so you can still contribute in there. And I think really the only thing you can't do online is hug someone or shake their hand. The rest,
I don't know, Dave. I don't know. I think you can do a little bit of.
well,
you know, there's thrown over.
Yeah, you can hug yourself and do all of that as a thing, but everything else, the fundamentals are the same.
Yeah.
Listen, be engaged, leave your camera on, and don't be switching your camera off, even if it's important. If it's off for too long, people will go, why are they not here? Why have they switched off? Make notes like you would do in most of the networking meetings, even if it's just like on your phone or whatever. A lot of the fundamentals are the same. There's a couple of things. It's difficult to maybe read too much body language because obviously you can only see me from the top half up, but trust me, this is the most expressive part of my body anyway. So you're going to see what I feel like and what I'm thinking. So I wouldn't get too hung up on there's too many differences. A lot of it is the same.
Yeah.
I'd also turn around and say, I think that if you're trying to organize a networking event, I think you need to be quite clear on who's there and why they're there. And we come back to the same thing because there are so many networking events out there, and the amount of people that I hear, I've just spent half an hour and I got nothing out of it, is maybe we need to go and ask those questions first. Yeah. If I come and join, what's the benefit? You know, I think people are a little bit scared of saying that. And I think there is this, the bigger the network, then obviously the more efficient and the better it is. And absolutely it's not. You know, it's, even if you've got a huge network, it will be your core group in the middle that is what works the hardest for you, because they are the people that you really have relationships with. They are people that trust you. They are people that know your product or who you are or what you are. And it is them that actually you're trying to feed through them into their network, which is similar to what Dave was talking about earlier. There seems to be this, and we were just talking about, you know, the different networks that are out there. And, I don't know, I can have 3,000 followers and I can have this and I can have that. But actually, how many of them are really relevant? And I think my final comment to that as an SME myself is, certainly when I first started, was I felt I spent so much of my day achieving nothing, but everybody else was achieving something by using my time while I was trying to network. Do you ever feel like that, Dave?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's difficult to get hold of.
Yeah, and it's just a case of what did I get out of that? And then you go and do the same thing again. So for anybody that's listening to this, that you get that regular, I'm generally networking with somebody, but I'm not quite certain why I do it, but I don't know how to say no. And I think that's a big one that just says, actually, I haven't got time. So it's back to really targeting why you are doing and who you are networking, and choosing. Time is of an essence to everybody. Is make certain that you choose. If you've met somebody for the first time, then stop and reflect a little bit. Is this really who I want to spend time with? Will this lead to anything, whatever it is that you're looking for, rather than you keep doing the same thing and 5, 6, 7 hours down the line, you're still asking the same question.
Yeah, and I think I'd add to that too as well is know why you're going to the group, because we network for different reasons. We don't all network just for business. Sometimes we network for support, sometimes we network for ideas, sometimes we just network for a bit of fun or to learn some industry specific information for us. So that would be another thing I would get clarity on. Why are you going to the event and what do you want from it? And then make sure you do your research to provide that event can provide you with that information and that knowledge. on there. And just when I said make yourself hard to get hold of, what I actually meant was have your one-to-ones with people, but be precious of your time and make it in a place that that fits for you, that suits you. Because I think the other thing to think about is, and Sue touched on that then, a big network, right, is brilliant for your network. A big network's great for your network because you can introduce people. I take it as a personal slight if somebody asks me for an introduction to someone and I don't know someone who does the thing, do you know someone who cuts a hamster's toenails? Yes, there's a fella in Formby, he does that. So if I can't introduce somebody, then I take it as I'm like, there's a gap in my network.
Yeah.
Big network is brilliant for your network. A smaller network is brilliant for your business.
And how do you measure the quality of your network there? How do you measure, how would you measure that?
That's a great question. So I've got a couple of things on there to get people to think about. It all comes back to me around what you want from your network. So there's three main types of network for me. There is your support network, which is, who do you go to let off steam? Who do you go to with advice? Who do you go to for a laugh? All of that. That's a support network. There is like a business network. So who do you go to, like an information network? Who do you go to for information about running a business? Who do you go for any legal problems, HR or any of that, web design or whatever? That's your information network. But then you've also got your referral network. And your referral network is where do you go to spend time to actually do those referral activities? So for your network, understand there's three main elements to the network. And then what you want to do is look at the gaps. So if I mentioned earlier on that you want to be thinking about who else works with your target market client. And the way I think about this is, where does your target market client, where else do they spend cash? Who else are they giving money to? Like what other types of businesses? Well, you need relationships with those types of businesses because they're the ones who are sat in front of the people that you want to be sat in front of. So a good exercise to do is to figure that out for yourself, write that down. Who's my target market? Okay. Where else does like an SME business owner spend their cash? Where else does an accountancy practice spend its cash? Where else does a graphic design or a software company spend their cash? Who else are they giving money to? Write them down, and then underneath those headings, write the name of the people that you've got that who do that thing. If you've got gaps, I haven't got, like, say, a business coach, for example. I haven't got a business coach in my network. Well, go and find one and go and begin to make good connections with a business coach, because you could help the business coach and they could help you. The trick with all of this is to think about it. This is to have the plan. You have to give it some thought. If you just go out there and just see what happens, then who knows what happens. But if you go out there and think about it and then actually give some thought into what you need, that's where the structure and the plan comes in.
If I can pick up on that, and I think I'd use the scattergun approach is my sort of terminology for it. If you are just going out and doing a scattergun approach, you are not controlling your network. You've got no idea where you're going, who's coming in, or where it goes. And for me, planning is the start of everything. The other thing I just wanted to pick up further on the referral bit, Dave, was one of the key things is if you've got that referral part of your network and you are building your network for them to be able to refer you, your product, your service, there is an absolute key must in there is you must give them the business knowledge that they require to be able to refer you. One of the big issues, I think, within networking and referrals is that we build these networks and they go, whoa, I quite like that Sue Gee, whatever it is. And then they go and they say to somebody, actually, I'm going to refer Sue Gee. But they've either just referred you for one thing that they know, or they refer you in the wrong way. And if they've referred you in the wrong way, the network that you have just built up, that you are hoping is going to deliver something back, is not going to happen because they can't promote your service, product, whatever it is properly. So once you've got your network and you've taken that planning time and done the things that Dave's just talked about, then make certain that you give them the tools and the knowledge to be able to go and refer you, because otherwise you've taken the time to build that network with that person. You are hoping that they're going to take you to their wider network. And if that's not there, then that won't happen.
Yeah. And I think it's difficult as well. Like I've got a question here from Ian, which I think we could tie in with another thing is extroverts probably thrive off like face-to-face interaction and that sort of thing. And it must be difficult for them virtually networking, but also as an introvert, introverts probably like to the virtual side of networking. So how would you balance that out for people? No, I'm not saying you're an extrovert, Ian. But you know, it must be very difficult, you know, as extroverts and as an introvert going into a face-to-face network. How would you?
That one first, Dave. Yeah, I think there is something. Yeah, extrovert or introvert. Okay, is if you are putting yourself in the networking arena, whether it's virtual or whether it's face-to-face, is you actually need to be comfortable in your own shoes. So you need to know back to your purpose, who you are, what is your product. It is even for extroverts, I can probably speak for myself there, Grace, yeah, is even when you put yourself into a group of people, whether that is online or whether it's offline, is it's very easy to wait for people to come to you. And I think that from both sides, you've made a decision to go to this network event, virtual or face-to-face. I think you have to put yourself into a mindset. And for those people that are more introvert, is set yourself a target. Yeah, I'm going to speak to two people or three people. I think the big thing around networking is that in a lot of events, whether it's virtual or not virtual, is there are people normally you know. So it's very easy to go into that group and stay there. Yeah. And hopefully somebody else will pop in rather than actually I am going to do one or I'm going to do two. And I think it's setting yourself your own expectations to slowly move out of whatever that comfort zone is. Dave, over to you.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest things you have to recognize, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, is your business will only last by the number of sales that you get in. If you're going to use networking as a way to generate sales, then, because at the end, this is the other thing. Sometimes it's a bit like people go, "Oh, I don't go networking for sales. I go networking to make relationships." Yes, but you want the relationships to lead to business. Otherwise, what's the point, right? And it's okay to get business from that. It's a bit like LinkedIn. When people are on LinkedIn and then we know there's clumsy ways to pitch. Direct pitches are really clumsy. But if someone then mentions a product or service, it's like, oh, what are you doing? It's LinkedIn. That's what it's the business platform. So expect people to say to you, we want to, we've got this thing that we think it might be good for you. So when you're, whether an introvert or an extrovert, when you go in networking, the purpose is to build relationships. It's exactly what it is. Some of those relationships will lead you to support for you running your business, but effectively you want a benefit for your business to grow. So you're looking for something when you're going. If you get that in your head and understand it, it's all right. It takes the pressure off. You're not trying to be, everyone who's there wants something, and that's it's okay. It's not, sometimes we can get a bit too fluffy in our thinking about, I give to everyone. Yeah, well, that's great. Give to everyone. But we're still going to want something. And it's okay to want something because you're in business for it. So if you're an introvert, especially, I've got some really good friends who are introverts. They hate networking, right? But they use it as part of their business growth and development, whether they're online as we are now, or whether they're face-to-face when that happens. And it's finding a way that you're comfortable is the main thing. So if you're an introvert and you might get stuck with things to say, have your stuff written down. No one can see the other side of your screen, right? Only you can see it. So if you want to type stuff out that's got your 60 seconds or your pitch or what you do, type it out and stick it around the screen where only you can see it. If that helps you feel comfortable, or do some bullet points about things you want to make sure that you get across about your business. And don't be afraid to speak. Most people, when they're on networking, most people will want to hear from you anyway, because the majority of people who go networking do have that we want to give, we want to help starting point.
Grace, can I just pick up that just back a second briefly? And there's also a question that's just come in from Bill, that talks about, and I'm going to link networking back into push and pull sales. Dave is quite right. We go to networking events to build relationships so we can increase our business, unless you're on the referral, the sales, that sort of side and the best way to do business is to find out, what somebody needs, and then you can sell your product to them. So if you have got what I call back pocket questions, they are things that you have pre-prepared, and they should be wide and broad enough that you're talking to anybody that you can turn around and say, so, what business are you in? What sort of problems do you have? What's successful for you? What are you missing? How does that work? So that you are actually just finding out that you have an interest with theirs, and then that you can continue. Those questions don't come naturally to most people. They are something that you practice, because most of us turn around and say, well, did you like that? Or did you do this? Or rather than, and that whole, without going into questions as a training course, is the yes, no questions. I want a conversation with you. So I'm going to be asking you about how you feel, what you do, who that is, where does it sit? And that will enable even introverts, because it's a continued relationship or communication that will allow them to be more comfortable.
And I noticed there on Bill's questions there, if I'm right, he said, what are key questions to get people to open up and share information about their needs and concerns? Well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be doing that on the first time if I'm talking to somebody. Me personally, I want to know about them. So I'd be saying, how are you? What do you do? Oh, that's nice. And how long have you been doing all of that type of stuff? Where have you been recently? What type of stuff have you been up to? Have you got a family? I want to know all of that type of stuff, because if I'm going to build a longer relationship with somebody, I like to get to know them. So if you're a bit worried about, and I know, I totally get, by the way, some people are a little bit like, what's he asking me about my family for? And they don't like it. That's okay. I'm tuned in enough to twig to that when they speak. So then I'll ask them about something else. But don't think you have to network with everyone. The other thing, when you go, Sue made a really good point before, pick a couple of people, say, do you know what, I'm going to speak to 2 or 3 people and have a good conversation with 2 or 3 people. Now that is a little bit more difficult online, because unless the person running the event has good use of breakout rooms, which I would strongly recommend. If you're running an event, get really good at using breakout rooms. Put the effort in beforehand to be able to move people around, because I've been on a few events where they have 3 breakout rooms and I've been with the same person 3 times, and it's like, oh, this is good. Not. So it's just that little bit of thought and effort into using breakout rooms well. But if you find out about the individual and ask them about what their world is and what's going on in their world, most people will tell you. For me, that makes me think, I like this person, I want to catch up with this person. And then I will say, especially if it's in the Zoom world that we're in now, if it was Sue, I go, Sue, look, I really enjoyed that. Do you fancy having a one-to-one and a catch up and tell me a bit more about your business and about what you do? That's how I do it.
Which is also what happens when we're face to face, really. If you think about it, not that we can remember it so long ago, when we did face to face get-togethers and you went in, you would spend a little bit of time, but the same, while your questions are personal, they're still, who are you? How are you? What have you got? What do you like? What don't you like? Yeah. Is that, you don't really go into a hard sell to anyone. You don't really, you never go into a hard sell with anybody that you are initially trying to network with for the first time. You're just, because you can't, because you're then going into sell rather than into, can I find out more about you?
It's like that direct pitch on a LinkedIn message. It's the same thing. It's just because I'm just like, and I'll often reply and go, hi, insert person's name. Look, thanks for this. I really look forward to following your LinkedIn journey and find out a bit more about what you do. And I'll reply that. Then sometimes they come back and go, thanks for that, Dave. But so what we do is this, this, and this. And I go, I know what you're doing because you've told me in the previous message, but I don't buy things directly from people that I don't really know.
Yeah.
So until I get to know who you are, what you're about. And that's exactly the same, whether it's online networking or face-to-face networking. The whole point of networking is a way. There's more. Direct selling is out there. If you want to direct sell, networking is not, it's not the vehicle for you.
No.
The networking is a business, is a relationship building way to generate sales through your network and through the people that you know. If direct sales is your thing, there's other ways to go and do that. You know, whether you use online, SEO, pay-per-click, or cold calls, go and do that. If that's the thing. And there's no right or wrong, by the way. I'm not being virtuous and saying, well, our way is better than yours. It's what works for you. Go and find the way that works for you and go and put your time and effort into that. Networking. Go on, Sue.
And Dave, I'd turn around and say, actually, for any SME, you need both of them. You need all of it. You need direct sales. Yeah. You need referrals. You need networking. Yeah. And it comes back to where we started, is take some time at the beginning and work out what your plan is. Yeah. How are you going to do your direct sales or your referrals or wherever it is? And I think that with a lot of things is when we are building relationships with people, which is what networking is all about, we are building relationships that are long-term relationships that we want to grow and we want to start to link with their networks. And if you understand that, then you look at the other things that you get out of it too.
Yeah. And just, sorry, Grace, just to finish off on Bill's question there, if you're not comfortable asking, you know, how's the family, what you do the weekend, all that type of stuff, if you want some questions for them about their business, ask them things like, oh, what is it you love about the insert thing here? Or what's the most misunderstood thing about, well, because you'll then get their thoughts on what it is and what they do. And maybe what's the biggest pain for you at the minute? So those, if they're asking the family or the personal type stuff's not good for you, those questions are good, because they're like Sue mentioned before, they're not yes or no questions. They're questions that allow people to think and start and develop a conversation, so you can then have a conversation with somebody.
Because that is your aim of any networking event, is to have a conversation that gives you something to think about, that you can look to taking it somewhere further forward. Grace, I think we're going to have to come back to you because I think we're about to run out of time.
Yeah, so just to summarize, what are your hot top tips for networking and to gain value from your network?
Go on, Sue.
Okay, what would I do as my top three? Well, my first one is why. Yeah, why are you there? What you're doing? What's your plan? Where does it sit? My second, I think, would be know yourself, know who you are, know what you're trying to do. So you're looking at the target market and you're looking at yourself. And the other one is don't put too much pressure on yourself, would be my third one. Yeah. And, you know, enjoy the networking as well as what you're doing for a business. Dave?
Love it. So I'll add on to a parallel top three, because all of those that Sue said are great. So I no point in repeating them. Have a plan. Just put the time and effort in to have a plan. Sue said know yourself, 100% true. Know who you want to make a difference for is the next one. And then have an easily repeatable message that when you get asked, so what is it you do? You don't describe yourself as the noun. So the noun would be, I'm an accountant, I'm a business coach, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an estate agent, or whatever it is. That's the noun, okay? And what happens then is people will in their head know what you do. But what's really happening is they know what an estate agent does, they know what a graphic designer does, they know what an accountant does, but they don't know what you do. So never describe yourself as the noun. Always describe yourself as a verb. In other words, the action or the difference that you make. That way, that also then leads into a conversation. Because as an example, I say, so people say to me, what do you do? I go, I never say I'm a business coach because they just leg it. Why would they do that? And don't forget, business coaching is not what I am. That's a thing. That's an activity. It's something I do. If you want to label me by something I do, you may as well call me a cyclist, a jogger, a football fan. They're all things that I do as well. So I would say somebody, they say, what do you do? I go, do you know how no one ever starts a business for the sake of starting a business? They start a business because they want a lifestyle. What happens is they work so hard on their business that they forget about the lifestyle. And if they realize they're not having a lifestyle, what do? They go back and work even harder on the business and have even less of the lifestyle they wanted in the first place. I just help them do both. What happens then? I get most people will say, oh God, I need to talk to you. And I go, oh, why? What? Or they'll go, you need to talk to such a person.
Yeah.
So it's much better than if I'd have said I'm a business coach, they'd have gone, I know what you do.
Yeah.
No idea what I do.
That's great. Thanks, guys. I'll just say from a social media point of view, I'll give some 3 top tips as well. Join LinkedIn, join Clubhouse. If you want a Clubhouse invite, drop me an email and I'll give you an invitation. Touching upon what Dave has just said, don't put what your job description is on your LinkedIn, put what you do, and that'll be a catalyst for more conversations as well. So thanks, guys. The recording will be sent to you all after this webinar, so if you want to look back at what Sue and Dave has said, look at that. Our next webinar will be on shaking off a pandemic fatigue within your workforce. So that'll be on Thursday, the 25th of April at 11 a.m. And that's with 2 amazing girls who are in the mental health and wellbeing field, Jenna Collins and Vicky Jones. So that's that. So keep up to date with all things Prosper on our socials and hopefully see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.